You're watching Spurs Rewind. I'm Vickie Villarreal. Rocky couldn't be here today, but I have Joe Garcia with me. How are you doing, Joe?
I'm doing good. I'm good. I'm glad to be back on doing the Spurs Rewind with you.
Yeah, it's good to have you. Always good to see you. So it's been a while since we've talked, and the Spurs are continuing to trend, I guess, in the way that we would expect, which is unfortunate because, of course, we all want to see them winning, but that's just not going to be the case this year. They've got a record of 12 wins and 26 losses, which is enough to place them in the 14th place in the West. And their last win came at the end of December, which isn't really too bad, except that before that, well, there was one win a couple games before, and then before that was that really long stretch of losses that we talked about last time. But I wanted to ask you because I know that we know, and everybody who's analyzing the Spurs this season pretty much expects them to lose. But what do you think that's like for the team, Joe? Like, do you think that they're losing morale? Do you think morale is probably not in a great place? What are you seeing? What do you see from the guys?
Yeah, I don't see that. What I see from them is that they get discouraged, they get upset, and I think they understand the process as far as them having to play better from one game to the next. It's a young team just still trying to find their way, but I do see them competing out there. Yes, there's some games where they get humbled and they get embarrassed, like they did against the Brooklyn Nets. But for the most part, you see them out there trying to do the best that they can and really they go out there and compete. So I'm really seeing them put forth the effort, even though it's still not translating into the amount of wins that maybe the players were looking for or even Spurs fans were looking for, you know?
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think you can see that they're discouraged. They obviously like to be winning. But just, I don't know. I think in a way they're sort of expecting it too. I don't think they're throwing games on purpose, but I think they know they're not going to be winning anytime soon. But I can't say that I don't think that it gets them down every once in a while. Um, it's a little, I guess, worrisome for the young guys who, some of these guys who have been there 3 or 4 years, they haven't had a winning season. I mean, we've had winning seasons since, not making the playoffs, but they haven't been to the playoffs. Um, yeah, I could see where it could be a little tiring to go through this kind of process for them, but just, hoping they power through. Um,
Do you want to read
so
Rocky's rebuttal to that question as well? Since he's not
yeah,
here, I can read
sure.
it.
Let me take a look at his answers. Yeah, so Rocky, um, you want to read it, Joe?
Yeah, I'll read it. Yeah, Rocky basically, to answer your question is, how's the Spurs morale? He put to me, it's not surprising. Eventually, talent becomes a factor. And I'm not saying the Spurs don't have talented players, but my question is, who's that guy? He says KJ and Vassell have shown flashes, but if you got a Wemby or Scoot, are they the best players already? Because the Spurs have a young group, but it's not surprising that they are losing because they are so young. Although I'm hyped about the future of the team. If the core stays put, Spurs are still a couple pieces away if they want to make sure if they want to make some noise. While they are losing, the morale for me is likely hungry and hyped to get better. The players don't like losing and are constantly doubted. They are going to use this losing as fuel. That's what
That
Rocky had to say.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. I think it's true. But I want to touch on something that he mentioned about if the Spurs acquire Wemby or Scoot, are they those players automatically going to be, you know, the
The best
guy
player.
on the
Yeah.
Spurs? So there's a lot of uncertainty, I think, revolving around that, and that's got to be hard for the guys who right now are leaders on the team. Fear of somebody coming in and it's just like, now you're second best. But even with that uncertainty, um, there's a lot up in the air. And speaking of this, the Spurs completed a trade yesterday with the Celtics where they dealt the Celtics a future conditional second round pick and received cash and Noah Vonleh, who they plan to waive. But to do this, they had to waive Gorgie Dang and yeah, just a lot of really weird little pieces being moved. Um, in the end, the Spurs got cash. So, what are your thoughts on the trade, Joe? What do you think? What kind of value does this give the Spurs?
With this latest trade that the Spurs made with the Boston Celtics, I believe what it signals is that both teams are going ahead and making this deal because it has to do more, I believe, with the cap space. You know, as far as the Boston Celtics go, making the trade, for Vonleh helps the Celtics shed his contract, and giving some considerations to the San Antonio Spurs, and the Spurs, waiving both Vonleh and also Gorgie Dang. It's just a win-win for both teams at this point. Will it signal, something that, could be a bigger, I guess, trade in the future for the San Antonio Spurs? It possibly. I don't know if it signals that the Spurs, in fact, are going to be making tons of trades coming up before the trade deadline. There's still the rumors swirling of Jakob Portal, Doug McDermott, Josh
Yeah.
Richardson. Out of those three, I think that Josh Richardson would probably be the option, in my opinion, to be dealt. Only because now with the advent of one Stanley Johnson and Elise Johnson, there, Stanley to me is Elise Johnson was waived. Stanley Johnson was acquired, and with Stanley, I think he will probably wind up, and he is getting more minutes. And in my opinion, I think that makes Josh Richardson more expendable. And then you also have Malachi Branham as well, getting a little bit more playing time. So I think that kind of signals a direction of what the Spurs are wanting to do is play some of their younger players a bit more than Josh Richardson, I'd say at this point. So if he becomes trade bait and they do trade him, I mean, that would make more sense. But is it that
Yeah.
they're going to blow up the whole team? Probably not. It's just this was a deal that they couldn't pass up, and it made sense because they do get some cash back in the whole thing.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of Rocky is a little more extreme in his belief right now. He said he thinks the Spurs are going to be sellers, and he wouldn't be surprised if a fan favorite gets traded. He put names out there, like you said, Richardson, but he also threw out Doug McDermott
Yeah.
and Jakob, of course. Jakob's been in the discussion since forever. And I find it really interesting because, Doug McDermott and Richardson are basically the Spurs only shooters right now. So, if that ends up happening, it, yeah, what is expected then of the team? They're already doing, pretty poorly. And then without that extra depth, that's going to be a little crazy. Um, Speaking of, now that I'm sure everybody, has heard the news that Devin Vassell is going to be undergoing surgery on his knee, and the Spurs did not disclose a recovery time for this. Um, I was just curious. Do you think he's done for the season? What are your thoughts?
Well, you're looking to see how many games have the Spurs actually played thus far into the season. I believe they're right at 38 games played,
Mhm.
which they're almost at the halfway mark. Let's be honest.
Mhm.
Them going ahead and saying, "Hey, we're going to go ahead and have this orthoscopic knee surgery done on one Devin Vassell." I don't know if it means that he's going to be out for the rest of the season, but we're looking at what, January right now? So let's say realistically, if he has 6 to 8 weeks, does that mean he's going to be coming back and possibly playing again with the team after the rodeo road trip? Because soon after that, you just have the month of March. And then in early April, that's when the season comes to an end against the Dallas Mavericks. So looking
Mhm.
at the timetable that we have in front of us, I'd have to say I don't think he's done for the season, but respectively, I think that, he's not gonna see a lot of playing time if and in fact
Right.
does return to the team. You're looking at just maybe a couple of weeks of him getting out there
Yeah.
in the court and probably just a morale boost for him to continue his rehab in the off season. But
Yeah.
realistically, it's gonna become a non-factor for the San
Yeah,
Antonio Spurs, which means that they're going to have to rely heavily on some of the younger players to go ahead and fill that role. So it means that
yeah,
Pop's probably going to wind up playing with the lineup a bit more and kind of get cute at this point in time, and see who he's going to plug in any given game to take the place of one Devin Vassell, which, let's be honest, is going to be a hard task to fill because he was
right.
one of the players behind one Keldon Johnson that was really playing solid minutes here in that
Yeah,
starting lineup. So, yeah, it's
yeah,
it's going to be tough for him to come back and just get plugged in again. Got to go through that rehab. So, I'm not saying that he's
yeah,
out for the year, the rest of the year, but if he does come back, it might just be what, 2 weeks left in the season,
yeah.
3 weeks
It's
left in the
it's
season. Yeah.
it's a close call. Yeah, I agree. I could definitely see it happening where he doesn't return. But who knows? I mean, there's nothing really at stake for the season for the Spurs. So, if they do want to bring him back and have him compete a little bit once he goes through his rehab, maybe they will. But I'm kind of leaning towards he probably won't come back, which is a little sad. Um,
Not bad for the Tank fans. Tank for Wemby
no,
fans are gonna
yeah.
be all excited because 'cause they're gonna want that number 1 spot.
Exactly, exactly. So on a little bit of a lighter, happier note, in a week, the Spurs will be playing at the Alamodome again for the first
Oh,
time in, oh my goodness, 2003. Oh my gosh, almost 20 years, 19 and some years. Um, and it's going to be a big event. I think we could probably expect some big local figures to show up. And it's also going to be aired on ESPN, which is a little, it's the one game this year, I think, that is nationally televised.
nationally covered game.
Yes, yeah, it is the only game this year that's gonna be covered, which is awesome because the nostalgia, Spurs, the Alamodome. Um, but what are your thoughts for it? Do you think they're gonna get a win? Do you think I mean, they're playing the Warriors who are I mean, they're not terrible, but they're not amazing right now. So, I mean, do you think the Spurs have a chance of getting a win?
I think the Spurs have a chance at getting a win. I mean, the Warriors aren't the team that they once were. Let's be honest, this season they've had to deal with injuries of their own. But in the outings that the Spurs have played against the Warriors, it's been kind of respectable, so to speak. But I think the Spurs have a decent enough chance to go up against the Warriors here in front of the home crowd, especially if the Warriors decide to sit some of their star players. They still have what, Steph Curry, not really inserted into the lineup because he's still battling injury. So if the Warriors
Mhm.
wanted to bring him in just to appease the fans here and nationally televised game, I could see them throwing him out there for limited minutes, but I don't think it's going to be a big game, big X factor in the game. So I think the Spurs have a decent enough shot to win for the fans and for the city. It's a big thing because it's been quite some time since the San Antonio Spurs have played in the Alamo Dome. And I believe at the time of this recording right now, I saw on Twitter that the Spurs are still just 10,000 tickets away, or they need to fill those seats 10,000 away from going ahead and probably breaking that record. Selling out
Get your tickets,
75,000.
people.
So they're getting
Yeah,
awfully close. They're getting awfully close
they're
to
close.
making history. And I foresee that the league and the city is going to make a big push to fill those seats, even if they have to buy the tickets,
Yeah,
via sponsors or whatnot and give those tickets away. I think they're going to wind
right.
up breaking the record because the league's going to go ahead and say we gotta make
Yeah.
this happen in front of a national audience.
Exactly, exactly. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's exciting. The Spurs' first national game, at least planned national game for a while. So it's going to be exciting. I'm excited to watch that, and we'll
Yeah,
both
I
be
am too.
there, right, Joe?
Yeah, I'm gonna be there.
Yep.
I mean, I'm taking my oldest son with me, so I told him the last time
Oh,
he
nice.
was at a game in the Alamodome, just full transparency. He was a baby. He was probably like 2 or 3 years old,
Oh,
and we were watching the Lakers, so he's full circle now. He's coming with me as an
that's
adult
adorable.
to watch the game.
Yeah, I was a kid, little. I won't say how old. when I was a little kid. Little last time I went to an
Oh,
Alamodome
little
game,
Vickie.
which was the last year that they played. I think the last year they were there. I was there.
There you go.
But
Are you gonna be at the game?
yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna be there. My husband and I will be there, and actually my family, basically my whole family is going. We're sitting in separate spots though, so we'll be, like,
No.
around.
If you come out on the kiss cam, I smell a wind coming on.
Exactly. They are undefeated when I've been on the Kiss Cam, so
Fact, that's facts.
exactly, exactly. But anyway, as we bring the show to a close, do you have any final thoughts or final things you wanna say before we sign off?
No, and just, I'm excited that, we're at the getting near the halfway mark of the season. I'm excited about the growth of some of the younger players. I'm looking at, one Jeremy Sohan who's looked really good as of late, and I want to see what some of the younger players can show us, as the season starts to wane down for the second half now. So I'm not looking for the win so much. And let's be honest, where everybody's looking forward to seeing if the Spurs can get that high pick. So wins to me aren't I guess the main cause of focus. It's going to be focused on the growth of the younger core. So be patient, Spurs fans. The team's time is coming.
Exactly, exactly. I'm on the same page with you there and just enjoying the season and watching these guys grow and really excited for this yeah, just the rest of the season, what happens and going into the postseason. Hopefully some major stuff happens for the Spurs, but we'll see. Um anyway, be sure to follow me and Joe on Twitter. I'm there at the Vicky Vix,
And
which
I'm going to
is
flash the thing in the bottom so they'll be
oh
able to see it
yay,
as
I don't
well.
have to spell
You
it.
don't have to do it.
And follow Joe as well. Also, check out projectspurs.com for up to date Spurs news. And also check out, social media, Project Spurs. There's always stuff going on. There's lots of different shows and content being put up constantly. So, for Spurs Rewind, Joe, thank you for joining us.
No, thank you.
And we will see you next time.
Bye.